The courthouse corridor smelled like floor polish and day-old coffee. A strip of blue painter's tape on my camera rig carried a reminder I read every time the red record light blinked on. Like and subscribe for more stories that challenge prejudice and celebrate courage. I mouthed it as ritual, barely moving my lips, then rolled the camera on my shoulder and drifted toward Department 43, Family Division, City of Midvale. A bailiff with a shaved head and scarred knuckles stretched his neck until it cracked. He looked at my badge, then at the microphone clipped to my collar. "You're the only one with a camera today," he said. "Keep it respectful." "I'm here to listen," what I said, "not to fight." He smirked like he'd heard that line before. On the bench outside, a young black woman with tight coils pinned back into a low bun stared at a manila folder until her eyes went glassy. She wore a gray blazer that had been pressed too carefully, the kind of work done at 1 a.m. when you've decided that neatness is the last thing you can control. Next to her, a little boy in dinosaur sneakers kicked his heels against the wooden bench and counted under his breath. I later learned his name was Miles. At that moment, I knew his mother only as the name stamped on the docket, Nia Carter Reed. Through the glass pane of the courtroom door, I caught a glimpse of the man who matched the other name on the schedule, Evan Reed, laughing too loudly with a woman whose red coat flashed like a flare. Her lipstick matched the coat. They stood shoulder to shoulder with Evan's attorney, a tall man in a charcoal suit holding a leather folder that looked expensive before you even saw the brand. A clerk popped his head into the hallway and called, "Case D3289, Reed versus Reed, Dissolution and Property Division." Nia stood, gathered the manila folder, and kissed Miles on the forehead. A friend slid a coloring book into his lap and nodded at Nia with a quiet confidence that read like prayer. I drifted in behind them to the second row where Maggie, the friend, sat with Miles, and where I could see the judge's bench unobstructed. The man in the charcoal suit and the woman in red took the front row behind the counsel tables like they were seating for some theater premiere. Evan adjusted his tie. I felt the silence shift as he set his palm flat on the table, fingers tapping a rhythm on the polished wood. "The clerk," Mr. Dominguez announced. "All rise, Department 43 is now in session. The Honorable Judge Marisol Vega presiding." We stood. There was a scrape of chairs on tile like a soft rain. Judge Vega entered from the door to chambers, black robe flowing, hair pinned back in a simple twist. I've seen judges who lead with volume. She led with presence, calm, observant. 2 steps to the bench, a pause, a level look that took in the room before she sat. "Be seated," she said, voice even. I had ramped up my gain enough to hear the rustle of paper at the counsel tables. Mr. Hall, the charcoal suit, as I later confirmed, stood and announced his appearance for petitioner, Mr. Evan Reed. On the other side, there was no suited defense attorney. Just Nia standing with a folder pressed to her chest. "Respondent, are you represented?" the judge asked. "Not today, Your Honor," Nia said. "I've been talking to legal aid, but I couldn't get anyone in time for this hearing." The judge's eyes softened an inch, but her tone stayed formal. "All right. Stay close to the mic when you speak so we have a clean record. Mr. Hall?" Mr. Hall smiled, a smile meant for cameras. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward dissolution. The parties have agreed to the division of assets via a notarized postnuptial agreement signed last month. There is no dispute on custody. The child will primarily reside with respondent, and Mr. Reed will pay guideline support. We're here today to finalize." "Straightforward?" the judge said. "And the woman seated behind you is?" Evan half turned like a man caught off guard by his own reflection. "My, friend," the woman in the red coat supplied, her voice musical with an edge. "Camila Stone, here to support Evan." Mr. Hall cleared his throat. "Ms. Stone is not a party, Your Honor." "Noted," Judge Vega said. She nodded toward Nia. "Respondent, do you oppose finalizing today?" Nia swallowed. Her eyes flickered to the folder, then to Miles, then back to the judge. "I don't oppose the divorce. I oppose the postnup. I signed it after hours of pressure. And I discovered it includes properties and accounts I never knew existed. Some in names that look like companies but are just him or them, and I can show you." Mr. Hall slipped a paper from his folder and held it up like a certificate. "Your Honor, the postnup was signed before a notary. Any alleged pressure is subjective and uncorroborated." The judge lifted a hand. "This court is not a rubber stamp. If there's potentially material non-disclosure, we don't finalize. Ms. Carter Reed, what do you have there?" Nia stepped forward and slid the manila folder across to the bailiff, who passed it to the clerk, who placed it on the bench. There was a pause while the judge flipped pages. On the left, I caught a glimpse of a spreadsheet with columns labeled by month, account numbers partially redacted, amounts in precise rows that ached with the kind of care that only desperation or professional habit yields. I've been in courtrooms where the power meets the people, and the people arrive empty, Empty hands, empty words, empty luck. This was not that. This was a woman who arrived with a paper trail she had assembled herself because nobody else was going to assemble it for her. The judge tapped a page with her pen. What is Mainsail LLC? Nia's voice steadied. A shell, created 6 months after our wedding. According to the Secretary of State filings, the registered agent is a P. Alvarez, who works at a mail drop in Temecula. According to property records, Mainsail bought a condo downtown 2 weeks after I thought we purchased our home together, except that, in the postnup, our home is community. The condo is not. And the transfer date matches a big cash withdrawal from our joint savings that I never authorized. I saw Evan's jaw set. He leaned in to whisper to Hall. Camilla's lipstick caught the light as she smirked. She turned slightly, meeting my lens with a gaze that said, "This isn't your story." "Where did you get this?" Hall asked, too loudly. Nia kept her eyes on the judge. "Public records. And an email forwarded to me from someone at Evan's firm. I'll name them privately if necessary. The email is from Evan to Ms. Stone, talking about how they can move assets before I notice. It includes a draft of the postnup with the accounts already decided." "Objection to hearsay," Hall said quickly. "We're not at trial," the judge said. "We are evaluating whether there's good cause to set an evidentiary hearing and stay the final decree. Ms. Carter-Reed, do you have that email?" "I do," Nia said, and lifted her phone. Printed in the folder, the metadata shows it was sent at 1:12 a.m., 3 days before Evan asked me to sign the postnup. He told me it would help protect me from his business risk. I was up for 20 hours that week with Miles sick. He brought a notary to our apartment. She kept glancing at Ms. Stone's texts popping on her phone. I can't prove that last part, but I remember the blue bubbles lighting up her screen. The judge's face went still. I saw a muscle in her temple flex. Tiny movement, but trained eyes catch tremors. She looked at the calendar, then back at us. "We will not finalize today," she turned to Hall. "Counsel, the court orders an evidentiary hearing on the validity of the postnup and possible sanctions for nondisclosure. Will subpoena bank records and records for Mainsail LLC and any associated entities. Produce any communications about the postnup between your client and any third parties, including Ms. Stone." Mr. Hall opened his mouth, closed it again. Evan's fingers stopped tapping. Camilla's red coat suddenly looked too bright for the room. "Your Honor," Hall said, scrambling for footing. "With respect, this delays closure for both parties. Mr. Reed has a right." "He has a right," the judge said, "to an equitable and lawful dissolution. I won't base orders on a document potentially procured by coercion and concealment. See you all in 10 days. Mr. Dominguez dates." Her gavel touched wood, not a slam, just enough to mark the moment. The room exhaled. Hall gathered his papers with jerky precision. He leaned close to Evan. What he said, I couldn't record rules, but I could read the shape of a strategy drawn in the curl of his lip. Camilla stood, then hesitated. For the first time, her eyes dropped to the scuffed toes of her shoes. I stepped into the hallway and waited. Nia emerged flanked by Maggie and Miles. She didn't look triumphant. She looked like someone who had sprinted to catch the last train and, against all expectation, made it to the platform. "Can I ask you some questions?" I said, low, as traffic hissed past the open window at the end of the hall. She looked at me like you look at a stranger who asks for your story. "Why?" "Because people who do everything right still get cornered. Because the record matters." I nodded toward my camera. "And because I've seen judges undo a day's worth of harm with a sentence, but not months' worth." She studied my face. I felt the weight of her measuring whether I could be trusted. Finally, she said, "Tonight, after I put Miles down, I have everything on a drive." We met in her apartment, a second-floor walk-up that smelled like cumin and lavender. She set a mug of tea in front of me that she didn't drink. On the table were stacks, utility bills, daycare statements, the checkbook with a pen angled across. "I met Evan at the company holiday party," she said. "I was in analytics then. He was a senior manager. He told me he liked that I asked harder questions than the men did." She smiled without humor. He liked that until I asked those questions about him. Her laptop screen glowed on a spreadsheet labeled Q3 Personal Ledger. Rows of numbers marched like soldiers toward an unknown front. Her fingers hovered above the trackpad. "Why keep it this way?" I asked. "Because paper forgets less than people," she said. "Because I didn't want a story that was just feelings. Because I knew if I didn't write it down, nobody would believe me when I said half the conversation happened in the silence between what he said and what he didn't." She clicked on a folder marked Postnup and opened a message. A forwarded email chain unfurled. The subject, "Cleanup before Friday." Based on internal documents I reviewed that night, with Nia's permission, Mr. Reed had written, "Need everything tight. She's exhausted this week. Notary on standby. Once signed, main sale and the condo are clean. You pick the balcony furniture. LOL. P. The reply from C. Stone read, Friday is the last window. Notary owes me one. I'll be there, just not on camera. P? I asked. He calls her pilot sometimes, Naya said. Because she steers the plan, or because he likes how it sounds. When I asked, he said it was just a joke. And the notary showed up at 9 p.m. She said she was glad to meet me. She tried not to look at the toddler pajamas on the couch. And when I hesitated, she said, I have another appointment in 15 minutes. And Evan said, Nia, it's a formality. And I signed. She closed the laptop and looked out the window, where the orange glow of a streetlight cut a triangle on the wall. I'm not against divorce, she said, voice steady. I'm against being erased. 2 days later, I sat in my car, outside a glass building downtown, with a 2-story mural on the side that read, in bright letters, Things we lose come back to us in unexpected ways. I watched a stream of suits pass through the turnstiles. I'd made calls. Some were not returned. One was. She met me by the food truck near the loading bay, hair tucked under a beanie, ID badge reversed to hide her name. Paralegal, she said. Former. She handled her latte like a prop. You didn't hear my name, she added. I didn't, I said. He's not special, she said. There are rules to hide assets in a divorce, and there are rules to hide assets while pretending you're not hiding them. He learned the second set from an older associate who thought he was doing him a favor. Guys like that see it as a game. If you're smart and your wife is tired, you can win by default. Who's P. Alvarez, I asked. A guy who signs papers for a fee. He thinks he's just part of the mystery. He doesn't know what he's signing, or he says he doesn't. There's a stack of main sale mail in his box most days. She sipped the latte and made a face. Burned. The notary? Lives out in Riverside. She's legit. She also owes Ms. Stone rent. You sound like you could testify, I said. You sound like you think my student loans will be gone if I do, she said. Find the records. I'm not brave, but I did email Nia. I got tired of watching the jokes. They joked about calling her a hothead if she objected. That maybe the judge would re-center her if she cried. They said she pushes race cards for clout. I couldn't finish my work after that. She slid a flash drive across the table like it burned. Logs, drafts, redactions before the redactions. Over the next week, I cross-checked public records, knocked on doors, and read. Based on county recorder entries, Mainsail LLC had purchased a 1,200-square-foot condo with a marina view 1 month before the postnup. Based on bank documents I saw later, $80,000 had moved from an account labeled Short-Term Savings 2391, the joint account Naya once used to pay for Miles's asthma inhalers, to an account ending in 14XX registered to a firm called Cormorant Partners. Based on a log file recovered from a hard drive left too long in a shared office, draft postnups cycled through 6 versions in the 3 days before Naya's signature, quietly removing assets newly added to Mainsail. Witnesses stated that Evan brought Camilla to his office parties months before anyone knew they were together. Colleagues shrugged. One, a woman with tired eyes and a wedding ring that looked too tight, told me in the elevator that the entire situation was messy and private. She shrugged again, as if suggesting that privacy had no smell, no sound, and required no upkeep. I think about that now and then, what we call private, when what we mean is I don't want to be involved. I wrote that sentence in my notebook and underlined the last 6 words. 10 days later, Department 43 filled early. I tipped my camera toward the ceiling to avoid face until the judge entered. Mr. Hall had added a junior associate, a note-taker who looked freshly minted. Evan's collar was starched, his eyes were hollow. Camilla came again, sitting second row. She pulled her red coat tighter around her shoulders as if the air conditioning blew only on her. When the clerk called the case and we rose, the air felt heavier. The judge looked rested, determined. We're here on the matter of the validity of the post-nuptial agreement executed on the 20th to determine whether it was procured by coercion and whether material non-disclosure occurred. I have reviewed the parties' submissions. Mr. Hall? He straightened. Your Honor, postnups benefit both parties. Ms. Carter-Reed had agency and time. The notary will testify that she verified identity and understanding. The allegations of non-disclosure are ordinary misunderstandings. Mr. Reed is not a financial professional. He relied on counsel for asset titling. The judge turned to Nia. Respondent, who would you like to call first? Nia adjusted the mic. The notary, she said softly, please. They brought in the woman from Riverside, hair lacquered into a helmet, hands folded. She did not look like a villain. She looked like someone who could sell Girl Scout cookies with the same thoroughness she applied to legal forms. State your name, the judge said. She did. The clerk swore her in, Mr. Hall walked her through the stamps, the logs, the procedure. "Did you verify that Ms. Carter-Reed understood what she was signing?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "She showed ID. I asked if she understood. She said yes." Hall glanced at the judge like a man finishing a well-rehearsed song. "No further questions." "Your turn," the judge said to Nia. Nia stepped forward. Her voice was quiet, but the mic was adjusted to catch every vowel. "Ma'am," she began, "did you know Mr. Reed before that night?" The notary hesitated. "No." "Did you know Ms. Stone?" Nia asked. A beat. "Yeah." "Did you owe her a favor?" "I owed her a month's rent. She told me she'd throw me some work." "Were you aware that she was romantically involved with my husband?" I assumed. I didn't ask." "Did she text you while you were at my kitchen table with your stamp?" The notary's face flushed. "Yes." "What did the text say?" Mr. Hall popped up. "Objection to hearsay." "Overruled," the judge said. "It's not offered for the truth, but the effect on the witness's state of mind." "They said, 'Don't let this drag,'" the notary murmured. "They said, 'Baby girl needs to sign. I'm late for a thing.'" They had emoji. "Did you feel pressure to complete the signing quickly?" Nia asked. "Yes," the notary said. Nia nodded. "No further questions." Silence. The judge made a note, then said, "Next witness." "Ms. Stone," Nia said. Camilla's chin lifted a notch. She stepped forward like a performer called on stage. Her heels sounded too loud on the tile. The clerk swore her in. She tilted her head and smiled at Mr. Hall like a co-anchor. "Ms. Stone," Hall said, "are you in a relationship with Mr. Reed?" "Yeah," she said. "We are in love, sir." She let the words hang. Hall nodded gravely, as if love were relevant to the code sections he had in his mind. "Did you direct any asset transfers on Mr. Reed's behalf?" "No, sir, I am not a lawyer." "Did you pressure the notary?" "I told her I was late for an event," Camilla said. "Women help women. I just encouraged efficiency." Nia stepped up with a printed sheet and a clear sleeve. "Ms. Stone, did you send this message?" She handed it to the bailiff, who passed it like a sacred text. Camilla frowned. The judge glanced down, brows rising an inch, then handed it back. "Answer the question," the judge said calmly. "I don't recall," Camilla said. "Shall we check the number?" Nia asked. Her voice did not spike. It landed. "Your number ends in 75, correct?" Camilla looked at Evan. He stared at the table. "Yes," she said finally. "Then you sent, 'Make it happen by Friday, or it all comes to me and you're left dry.'" "With a champagne bottle emoji," Nia said. "I was joking," Camilla said. "We joke." "Who is P. Alvarez?" Nia asked, sliding another page across to the courier route of hands. Camilla squinted. "I don't know, I meet a lot of people." "This is a photo of you, outside, a mail drop at 10:32 a.m., 3 days before the signing, texting someone named P. Alvarez under the sign that says parcel and more. You wrote, 'Got the blank docs, will fill on site for main sale.' The photo metadata shows it was captured by the security camera across the street. The owner gave it to me after I gave him a notarized release." She glanced at the judge. "Sorry if that's not proper form. I'm not a lawyer." The judge didn't smile. But something like approval changed the temperature of the room by half a degree. "The court appreciates organization. Mr. Hall, you'll have an opportunity to object to admissibility later. For now, the information is noted." Camilla bit her lower lip. The red coat looked suddenly like a flag signaling not passion, but hazard. "We were getting furniture," she said weakly. "For the condo, registered to main sale?" Nia asked. "The one you posted on Instagram from the balcony with the caption, 'New Dawns.' You geotagged it. Anyone can see the map if they look hard enough." "I delete a lot of posts," Camilla said, voice dimming. "No further questions," Nia said, and stepped back. Hall called Evan. "I always watch men when they approach a microphone they didn't install themselves." Evan adjusted it too high, then too low. He cleared his throat like it was an argument. "Mr. Reed," Hall began gently, "did you intend to deceive your wife?" "No, I intended to protect our finances," Evan said. He let his hand rest on the table. The tapping gone. "I was promoted last year. There are stock options, risks. I was told an LLC could help separate things." "Were you told to hide from your wife?" Hall asked. "No. I told her about the post-nup to protect her," Evan said. "I told her she didn't have to sign. She did." Nia stood. "May I ask him a question?" "Yes," the judge said. "When you brought the notary at 9 at night," Nia said, "did you tell me I had the right to seek counsel before signing?" "I said, yes or no," she said. He swallowed. "No." "When you sent Ms. Stone the email with the phrase, 'she's exhausted,' were you talking about me caring for our son with pneumonia?" Yes, but it wasn't, I didn't mean." "Yes or no?" "Yes," he said. "When you moved $80,000 into Cormorant, did you think I wouldn't notice?" "I thought you were busy," he said, too quickly. "I mean—" "No further questions," Nia said. Her face did not gloat. She retreated to the table and sat, spine straight, hands flat. The judge leaned forward. Her voice did not rise, but the room recalibrated to her pitch. I'm going to make findings on the record that will be unpopular with one party. Before I do, I want to say something I don't often say from the bench. Family court has a reputation for rubber stamping the agreements people bring in, even when those agreements were inked under pressure and fatigue and imbalance. We are not rubber stamps. We are guardians of process. She paused. The fluorescence buzzed like cicadas. I could feel the room lean in. The postnuptial agreement is hereby set aside as unenforceable due to duress and material non-disclosure. Mr. Reed, you orchestrated a signing at an hour designed to disadvantage your wife, with a notary paid indirectly by your partner, who was pressuring completion by text. You hid assets through an LLC with a straw agent, and you laughed about balcony furniture. Your emails will be part of the record. The condo is a community asset. The funds moved into Cormorant are community funds. You and Ms. Stone appear to view this as a game. It is not a game. It is the economic life of a family. She let the words settle, then continued. The court orders an injunction freezing all accounts associated with Mainsail LLC and Cormorant Partners, pending equitable distribution. The court refers the matter of possible fraudulent conveyance to the district attorney's office for review. Mr. Reed, you are sanctioned $10,000, payable to the court for bad faith conduct. You will pay respondent's attorney's fees to the extent they are incurred from this date forward, even if she is self-represented and uses consulting counsel. She turned to Nia. Ms. Carter Reed, you don't need me to tell you this, but you've done everything right. You showed up with evidence. You showed up with your son. You persisted. Custody will be as agreed. Support is set per guideline, adjusted upward for the lifestyle you tried to hide. We finalize the dissolution today. But we do not finalize the division until the assets are accounted for. You are not erased here. The sound that followed was not applause. It was the collective release of a community's held breath. Mr. Hall sat very still. Evan's eyes shone like he was about to cry, but his pride couldn't find the appropriate channel for tears. Camilla looked at the door as if someone had told her there was better oxygen in the hallway. The judge added, almost an afterthought, but with intent, Miss Stone, for future appearances, you will be seated in the gallery. This is not your stage. If you disrupt again, I will have you removed. Outside, the hallway smelled like the same floor polish as before, but the scent felt different, like the day after you air out a room that's been stale for weeks. Nia walked to the window and put her hands on the sill and stayed there. I kept my camera down. Some moments are big enough without lenses. She spoke without turning. Thank you for being here, she said. I watched you dismantle a wall brick by brick. I said, I have questions, but not now. She nodded. I have to pick up Miles. He wants pizza. She laughed soft. He thinks pizza solves everything. He might be onto something, I said. That night, I wrote until the keys on my laptop grew warm. I watched the footage twice. I replayed the moment when the judge said, "You are not erased here." I called the older associate at the firm, who allegedly taught Evan the game, left a message. He did not call back. I emailed the DA's office. A junior prosecutor said they would review. I texted the paralegal who'd met me by the food truck. Thank you. She replied a single word, relieved. A week passed, then 2. I received an envelope in my newsroom mailbox with no return address. Inside were photocopies of ledger entries from an account I hadn't known to look for. Aquifer Holdings. A sticky note read, "Check the dates versus Instagram." I did. They matched the nights Camilla had posted cocktails with a view. The amounts were withdrawals. That is the thing about patterns. Once someone shows you how to see them, they repeat. At a follow-up hearing, the judge apportioned property, not like a punishment, but like a balance. The condo sold. The proceeds went into an account for Miles's education and a down payment on a house in a neighborhood where the air smelled like grass after it rained. Evan kept his retirement accounts, but the value adjusted to reflect the rake he had already pulled from their shared pot. He agreed to therapy before his parenting time increased. The order wrote itself in quiet language that will follow him for years. Sanction on record, lecture internalized or not. After the hearing, Evan waited in the corridor while lawyer traffic flowed around him. He looked smaller without the posture. I approached, not to gloat, but because we had not yet spoken on the record. "I don't want to be your villain," he said before I asked anything. "Nobody wants to be the villain in their own story," I said. "I did what I was taught," he said. "At work," he paused. "At home. Protect yourself first. Don't show weakness. Tie up loose ends." He swallowed. I didn't think about what that sounds like to someone who hears those instructions every day already, in 100 other ways. "How do you mean?" I asked. "Nia has to tie up loose ends from other people's messes from the minute she wakes up," he said. "Daycare forms and judgments and looks, and I made more loose ends." What do you want people to know? I asked. He shook his head. That I'm sorry is what I should say. But what matters is what the court said. You are not erased here. I heard that. The judge made me hear it. Camilla didn't talk to me. She moved to a different part of town, according to an acquaintance, where balconies faced east and the sun found no easy purchase on the glass. If that's true, it's a fact. If not, it's a rumor. I don't print rumors as facts, but I recognize the way rumors originate from a collective desire to make sense of why people do what they do. Weeks later, I visited Nia in her new place. The walls were bare, paint still curing, boxes labeled with a black marker like labels in a museum. Miles ran down the hallway and back, his dinosaur sneakers upgraded to ones with light-up soles. He drew a pizza on the side of a box and declared it art. The legal aid attorney who coached me? Nia said. Her name is Priya. She told me to write down what I wanted to say to the judge. But in the moment, I didn't need the paper. It felt like I'd been writing it for years. She sipped tea. People treated me to a certain face once they knew I was a prosy black woman. The face that says, you'll get emotional. Priya said, you can get emotional and still be precise. That helped. What do you want to say to other women in your position? I asked. She looked past me, toward the window where the evening light set dust motes adrift like small planets. Document everything. Save emails. Ask for time. If they push the time, that's information. And listen to your body when it says something is wrong. Our bodies warn us. Mine did. I just didn't know I was allowed to act on it until the judge said out loud what I already knew. We sat in the quiet that follows a truth spoken aloud. Miles burst in and announced that the pizza had arrived. It had not. But 10 minutes later, it did. We ate slices on a box labeled books, the grease staining the cardboard in shapes like geography. When I cut the piece, I heard the rhythm of shoes on tile in courtroom corridors across the country. The cases blur after a while. The names change, the tactics remain. Hide, rush, pressure, sign here. Trust me, the thing is, trust can be an instrument or it can be a weapon. In Department 43, it lost its edge and became a tool again. The last time I filmed Nia, she stood outside the courthouse in a jacket that fit the season, eyes unflinching. I asked whether she forgave him. I don't know, she said. I know what the papers say now, and what they don't say. They don't say I was hysterical. They don't say I was naive. They say the agreement was set aside for cause. That's a sentence the system wrote for me that I will keep. She glanced at my camera and smiled faintly. You have that line on your rig, the one you mouth before you film. Say it out loud. I didn't know she had noticed. You want it on camera? Not for me, she said. For the ones who are tired. I steadied the camera and spoke where anyone standing on that sidewalk could hear, and where nobody had to pretend it didn't apply to them. Like and subscribe for more stories that challenge prejudice and celebrate courage. She nodded. Stories don't heal. People do, but stories remind people they can. Later, I watched the footage back and paused on the frame where the sunlight caught her hair and turned it into a halo that wasn't sentimental, just accurate to the physics of light. In my work, I've learned that moral inversion doesn't always look like a movie twist. Sometimes it looks like a woman everyone saw as a question mark becoming an exclamation. Sometimes it looks like a judge people assumed would be a stamp, becoming the voice that says, you are not erased here. I wrote the last line of the story on a legal pad because it felt right to write in ink for once. It read, the truth doesn't call you by your weakness, it calls you by your name and asks if you're ready to answer. And below it, because I meant it this time the way I mean it every time, but felt its weight like a gavel hitting wood. Like and subscribe for more stories that challenge prejudice and celebrate courage.